Appamada's place in the Zen universe. Ironically, a few years later, I was at a Soto Zen Buddhist Association conference, an august gathering of ordained priests and Dharma transmitted teachers. A young Dharma teacher looked at my name tag and, deliberately mispronouncing it, sniffed, Appamada? What kind of name is that? It was a great pleasure to tell him it had been the Buddha's last word and to explain its meaning. It has never failed to surprise me that Appamada is a term unknown by so many Buddhist teachers and even scholars, considering its important place in the Buddhist teaching and his last word to his disciples. It has turned out to be the perfect name for our Sangha, our way of teaching, and our shared aspirations. It is with mindful, energetic care that we regard the Buddha, the teachings, and each other. And it is mindful, energetic care we endeavor to practice in thought, word, and action.
Our years of training, practice, and study of Zen in its traditional Japanese form gave Flint and I an appreciation for its exquisite evolution in China and Japan over centuries of refinement. Buddha's teachings had been creatively adopted to these cultures and in turn had shaped the cultures themselves. We developed a deep love and respect for these traditional forms, their beauty, profound meaning, practices, and teachings. We had immersed ourselves in temple life and followed the traditional training to the extent that we were able to without moving to Japan, ultimately all the way through Dharma transmission. Of course, there was still more to learn, as there always is. I was especially interested in the social architecture, how traditional Zen was organized and structured to support a Sangha and the transmission of the Dharma. I studied the function of roles, physical spaces, practices, ceremonies, teachers, and teachings, organizations, and administration to more fully, deeply understand the way Zen had developed and flourished over so many centuries in temples and monasteries, in remote villages and farms, and in homes and hearts of its lay followers.
Maybe we should read the facing page.
Yeah.
It's going to actually be 2 pages.
I don't know that we hear a lot about Zen changed and Buddhism changed because as it moved to countries, but even within countries,
Yeah.
it changed in the circle of the way that was so clear. Basically, every teacher who made a name for himself started something
Right.
new.
Right. Okay. So this would be Melissa, is it?
Yeah.
We'll do paragraph by paragraph on this opposite side of the page.
You are muted, Melissa.
What? Did we lose Melissa?
No, she just forgot to unmute.
Oh,
Sorry about that. I was merrily reading along, enjoying it. It's been a long day. I had been a constant participant of ordinary Mind Sangha for almost 2 years when Peg announced in 2009 the opportunity of a residential week-long intensive. I was immediately conflicted by the desire to make arrangements so that I could attend and the terror of wondering if I could possibly endure the rigors of a multi-day sitting with little relief. Peg offered periodic one-day sits before the intensive, and I attended each one. I was in training to attend the week-long residential intensive.
okay. Then it's Melen.
The day before the actual intensive were an intensive of their own in a way. We had to take all our own cooking equipment because the community we were staying in could be using theirs. So in addition now to planning menus, developing the groceries lists and shopping for groceries for over 21 people for 7 days before the retreat, we also had to load all the cooking equipment. But there was good, congenial help. All the work was accomplished.
The intensive was at Lotus Lake, a Taiwanese Chan residential and retreat center. The Zendo was the most beautiful one I have seen. The structure was an octagon. The interior was constructed of a beautiful exotic warm brown wood. At the entrance of the Zendo, there was a breathtaking arrangement of clear crystals jutting out at angles, something like an asymmetrical starburst cut in half so that it could lie nicely on the table.
The setting was perfect for what was about to unfold.
Paragraph,
Peg,
it's just the paragraph before that, the master's chair.
I'm sorry. The master's chair was elevated on a platform. In front of the master's chair was the most magnificent crystal sphere sculpted from clear crystal formation, a crystal ball. On either side of the raised platform with the master's chair was displayed one half of a giant geode, about 1 foot wide and 3 feet tall, with amethyst crystals.
The setting was perfect for what was about to unfold. Peg and Flint gently revealed what was occurring. A new branch of Buddhism was emerging. A birth was taking place. The Buddha had carefully and wisely established the Dharma to be flexible and able to meet the needs and conditions of the moment, the times.
So let's continue because this goes down 2 pages, then we'll go back and pick up where we.
Okay. The Soto Zen lineage from which we arise is anchored in a monastic tradition. However, such a tradition doesn't exist in America, where Zen is now practiced. The Zen practice that Peg and Flint have established is a practice of householders, not monastics. It is formed to function within and to support people living their lives in households in accordance with the Dharma. While we originate from Soto Zen, we have emerged into a new branch of non-monastic Zen.
That's you, Kim.
Kim, you're muted.
This emergence, this birth necessitated a new name. Working with our founding teacher, Joko Beck, Peg, and Flint, decided on the name Appamada, which is purported to be the Buddha's last word spoken on his deathbed in answer to his disciples' questions about how they should proceed without him. They should proceed with Appamada with mindful care and attention to all that is occurring. It is not an action, but a lifestyle, a way of living. What an appropriate name for a group of householders living their lives in the way of the Dharma.
Speaking for myself, but perhaps also for others who were there, this was clearly a singular moment when something new and important was emerging on the planet. Like any birth, it emerged from numerous other occurrences that converged at one moment to create this new, original being, idea of direction. We, who were there, realized how very fortunate we were to be witnesses to this momentous change. No, we were actually a part of the emergence of a new direction in Buddhism. Whether or not it will flourish is unknown, but the seed has sprouted.
Lotus Lake, with a community, beautiful lake, and magnificent sando, as beautiful and perfect as it was the least important part of what occurred at the intensive. Yet, it played a vital role, allowing the new presence of Appamada to unfold and providing a nurturing container for the unfolding to happen. John Harman, Sangha member, former board member.
I'm returning back to the previous page, the last paragraph there. In this way, we had absorbed what would serve as the foundation of teaching and our practices. There was just one significant issue. Our Sangha was not Japanese, and we were not monks, but people living contemporary lives in the West. We saw what Joko had understood and how she had responded in her fierce teaching and stripping Zen practice down to its essentials. She recognized that we would have to remake Zen in America. Without our formal training in the traditional model of Zen, Flint and I would have no way to comprehend how. Before I left for Great Vow, I visited Joko. She said, "You don't need to go to a monastery." Then she added, "But you'll learn something. You always do." I told her, "I can't get to where you are without following the path you took."
I believe our study, training, and practice in traditional centers and monasteries provided the grounding and depth we needed to establish Appamada's contemporary model, the shape and process of an evolving spiritual ecosystem. Going forward, there will likely, sorry, that's my room. Sorry. My robot is cleaning the floor. and it's also mopping, so it's gonna clean them up. I'm sorry. Going forward, there will likely be no need for such traditional training in the Japanese model. We have no aspiration for training monks and priests. We are dedicated to serving householders, people living contemporary lives filled with work, family, friends, creative endeavors, civic engagement, worries, longing, distractions, upsets, dread, and delight.
So we have developed and fostered this Appamada approach to Zen, a fresh start. It has deep roots in the Dharma and the profound wisdom and compassion of Zen's tradition, teaching, and practice. This contemporary model of Zen, as relational practice and as an expression of care, also has deep roots, not only in Zen's history and vow, but in current sciences of mind, social organization, power dynamics, and cultural forces. Who cares is our primary koan. It's sometimes said as a gesture of hopelessness, of cynical detachment. Look again. It is an existential question that connects us deeply with all that is.
Our development does not follow a traditional template or social architecture, nor aspire to one. But it has not been a random walk, a grandiose delusion, or a plunge into chaos. Flint and I have devoted ourselves to the organic development of our Sangha structure by paying close attention to what is happening and providing both foundations in the Dharma and scaffolding for emergent relationships, deep spiritual friendships, to thrive and grow as we move together in the direction of waking up and growing up. In part 4, I'll describe just how that organic development unfolded as Appamada's unique social architecture evolved.
Freed from the need to mold ourselves into the traditional Japanese model, as we adopted Joko's spare, simplified approach to Zen, we became explorers, willing to experiment and discover what best served both the Dharma and our particular Sangha. We had ideas. In fact, we had a manifesto, The Green Edge, which I wrote at a Soto Zen Buddhist Association conference, a little piece that reflected my questions about the direction of SZBA and the place of contemporary Zen centers, such as our own, in the organization of traditional Japanese style Soto. Zen priests and Dharma transmitted teachers. And here's what I wrote.
The green edge. We, among others, are the green growing edge of Zen, like the growing tip of a new shoot of a plant, on a plant. We are not heretics and apostates abandoning tradition or denying its foundational importance in nourishing and supporting this growth. The rich teachings from the Buddha down to the present day are the DNA that is unfolding as this particular flower. We are social evolutionaries. We are not revolutionaries. We do not want to tear anything down or abolish any institution or structures. We respect tradition deeply and believe strongly in the necessity and value of traditional practice places. But we do want to grow Zen in America in this fresh, vibrant, alive direction.
It is our hope that the traditional Zen organizations that bring together so many different centers can find a way to honor our path as well, informing our practice, inspiring us, and fueling our sincere dedication to the evolution of Zen here and now. We feel we have something important to offer that can and should be included as a complement to the more formal traditional practice centers. And we feel strongly that an organization that concerns itself primarily with formalism, with policy and procedures, and narrow definitions of legitimacy cannot thrive and survive in this contemporary culture.
We will continue to offer what we can do best to the best of our capacities, and our teachings will continue to be grounded in the deep traditions and teachings of Zen. They will also be informed by what we continue to learn from neuroscience, psychology, physics, social sciences, the arts, and other disciplines, as well as our encounters with contemporary students leading their ordinary lives and our warm relationships with other teachers of the Dharma. This is a rich, abundant expression of the Dharma, flourishing in its inexhaustible way on new ground. It is not so different than Bodhidharma, coming from the West, or Dogen and Keisan, igniting Soto Zen in Japan.
Do you want to go back and read the side?
Little caption.
Yeah.
Sorry,
There it is.
I have to go slow.
This calligraphy by Nonan Chowani hangs above the altar at Appamada. It is usually translated as mindfulness, the quality of Appamada. The Japanese kanji character is in two parts. The bottom part means heart, mind, whole being, the same character for heart in the Heart Sutra. The top part means right now, in this moment, and also in this historical era. It is about bringing your whole being right into this moment.
Lovely.
Maybe that should be on a little card. The description, what do you think, below the image
It
on
should
the
be,
on
oh,
the
you mean
on
on,
the yeah,
the,
on the mantle there?
maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the green edge.
Traditional forms is where we were.
There or
No, it's back.
Yeah, that's right.
The
It's
traditional
there?
form.
Okay.
yeah.
The traditional forms all had their origins dependent on the culture and historical moment in which they arose. New forms are emerging in the same way here in the US. The salutary contribution of Zen practice here in the West is its potential for rich diversity and expression. And I think that is something we ought to celebrate rather than disparage. However, that said, I can certainly understand how a particular organization, such as the SCBA, might decide that its primary mission is to foster and support a strictly traditional Japanese style Zen practice, that it needs to be the keeper of that historical flame. It is an honorable aspiration, and we would have no quarrel with that decision. It simply means other organizations that either exist or emerge will be necessary as a medium for the evolution of Zen in America.
I will say, though, that it is my opinion that to head in the direction of more formalism and more emphasis on correctness and procedures is to repeat the very same dynamics that led Japanese Zen to become fossilized and morbid over time. Don't let the heart and the virility drop out of the Dharma in the interests of the preservation of forms and rituals, or priests may find themselves primarily officiants at funerals and caretakers of lonely outposts and dusty temples.
This piece was a strong challenge to conventional approaches to Zen based on the traditional Japanese mode. I shared it with a newly formed group, the Lay Zen Teachers Associations, in 2011.
Did you also read it at the other association?
I did.
And
Yeah.
what was the response?
I would say it was not responded to at all. So they were already headed down this direction, and I was there actually to question whether that organization was going to be able to accommodate contemporary models like ours or not. And so it was pretty clear to me, although they told me individually, as individuals, they all came to me and said, yeah, this is what we want to do. We want to be the big umbrella for Zen in America. And yet the organization itself was headed directly in the direction of more traditional forms.
So you obviously decided not to say that in the book.
No, I didn't put that in the book. No. And here's the caveat with that. I want to add that, of course, on the other hand, we Americans are prone to mistaking arrogance for independence, and we can also mistake ignorance for don't know mind, and self-centered impulsiveness for spontaneity. We have our own problems. So I'm going to read this part from Sekitoki-san on the other side. Hearing the words, you should understand the source. Don't make up on your own. If you don't understand the path as it meets your eyes, how can you know the way as you walk? Progress is not a matter of far or near. If you are confused, mountains and rivers block the way. I humbly say to those who study the mystery, Don't waste time. Sekitokisan, merging of difference and unity. Okay.
Could you read it again, please?
What? You want to hear that again?
Please.
Okay. Hearing the words, you should understand the source. Don't make up standards on your own. If you don't understand the path as it meets your eyes, how can you know the way as you walk? Progress is not a matter of far or near. But if you are confused, mountains and rivers block the way. I humbly say to those who study the mystery, don't waste time.
That really fits nicely with
Mm.
the talk.
Good. I'm glad.
Can you please remind me what is SCBA?
Soto Zen Buddhist Association.
Thank you.
We are convinced we can make up our own rules. We don't want to admit that the householder life really does present many difficulties and obstacles for serious Zen practice, and generally results in a divided commitment and often intermittent gaps in participation. I hope in coming together in this way, we can support and invite each other into richer, deeper, more energized and wiser teaching, inquiry, and practice for ourselves and our sanghas.
That was an important piece, both for the Soto Zen Buddhist Association and for our emerging lay Zen Teachers Association. It claimed a certain kind of territory for more contemporary explorations of Zen practice, teaching, and Sangha. So naturally we wondered, Flint and I, how could we cultivate true engagement, this quality of mindful, energetic care, of Appamada, in a Sangha of householders coming and going on different days and at different times, and spending most of their time together sitting in stillness and silence.
Could you please say householders in other words?
People who are not monastics or priests.
Like lay people, just like lay people.
Yeah, that's why we called the association the Lay Zen Teachers Association. But I'm not fond of that term, lay. So I prefer householder because it means people who are immersed in everyday lives, who've not gone off to a monastery, who are not running a temple like a priest does. Yeah.
Thank you.
We've had discussion yesterday and this morning about this, how to look upon this divided commitment and intermittent gaps. It just, well, you have a particular way of looking at that. But this really fit into our discussion that, I mean, there's this expectation that everyone will be, do everything and come every time and so forth.
Yeah.
And how an organization stays loose enough to accommodate everyone, but also keep its direction is kind of a challenge.
Well, that's one of our dilemmas, isn't it?
And then also it reminded me of the spiral dynamics, that people are at different places in this expectation of.
That's right. Yeah.
And so that all came back too.
So do we want to start chapter 11? You have any thoughts about chapter 10 that you need me to know?
Be aware of all that you know but cannot do.
That was one of the big billboard signs there at Lotus Lake. That was our concern. The things that we knew that we weren't going to be able to do. That was what we were worried about.
Okay, so chapter 11 is another
File, yeah.
so I have to get that.
Very helpful. Very, very, very helpful. There we go.
You need it a little bigger?
Please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Who's reading now? Who read last? Encounter. Morning sunlight was streaming through the windows in the Zendo, where pairs of people sat facing each other, knee to knee. They were silent, eyes closed, mindful and still. From time to time, each of them would open their eyes for a moment, then close them again. Sometimes their partner's eyes would happen to be open also, sometimes closed. After some minutes, a bell sounded, and the room erupted into lively conversation with their partners. In a little while, the group was brought back together to report on their experience, what was going on.
The instructions had been simple. Sit facing your partner with your eyes closed. Become mindful, turning your awareness within. When you are ready, open your eyes for a brief moment as if taking a snapshot of the person in front of you. Then, close your eyes to study your experience. Simply notice whatever arises. If anything, automatically and naturally inside when you open your eyes and see this person in front of you. Your partner will be doing the same at their own pace, so their eyes may also be open or closed. Just, just observe your inner experience without judgment. Then, when the time is up, discuss what you experienced with your partner, and then we will come back together to hear your reports.
You can read this little facing page quote if you want to.
The Dharma of, oh, Melissa.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Sorry, the Dharma of thusness is intimately transmitted by Buddhas and ancestors. Now you have it. Preserve it well. Dosan Royakai, son of the Yule Mirror Samadhi.
Relational Zen. You might be wondering, what is relational Zen? Clint and I didn't know yet either. We had to find our way using what we knew, our felt sense, and our observations of what was emerging for individuals and for the Sangha. We couldn't rely on the templates and models we had trained in, but we had a shared sense of how we wanted to work, a devotion to the Dharma, and of course, our vow. The evolution of the Sangha became our ordinary life, yet it has also been an exhilarating adventure. We began with a sketch of a definition. Relational Zen means waking up and growing up together in the Dharma.
But what does that mean? And could it even be called Zen? After all, Zen in the popular imagination and even among many practitioners has been seen as a solitary endeavor, a spiritual journey inward in solitude, silence, stillness, and stoicism. Meditation is considered an individual practice. However, this view is both isolated and isolating. Although partially accurate, it is incomplete.
This chapter provides a counter-narrative to the common view, first offering a historical perspective to establish the irreducibly social and relational foundations of Buddhism, and in particular, Zen. Then it will describe the methods we evolved at Appamada, both formally and informally, for practice in mindful relating. Finally, it will make the case for the psychological and societal need for this practice we've termed relational Zen. Ours is not the only Sangha working on this endeavor. However, it is the only one I have such an intimate knowledge of from the very beginning. But first, a bit of Buddhist history.
You want to read the quote on the facing page?
In my tradition, we learned that as individuals, we cannot do much. That is why taking refuge in the Sangha, taking refuge in the community, is a very strong and important practice. When I say I take refuge in the Sangha, it does not mean that I want to express my devotion. No, it's not a question of devotion, it's a question of practice. Without being in a Sangha, without being supported by a group of friends who are motivated by the same ideal and practice, we cannot go far. The presence of a Sangha is a wonderful opportunity to allow the collective energy of the Sangha to penetrate into our body and consciousness. We profit a lot from that collective energy. We can entrust ourselves to the Sangha because the Sangha is practicing and the collective energy of mindfulness is strong. Thich Nhat Hanh, Friends on the Path.
Buddha. Many of the Buddha's teachings focus on social harmony, not only among his disciples, the original Sangha, but more broadly across whole societies. He advised kings about how to keep their subjects happy, husbands and wives how to respect each other, villagers how to discern wise teachings among the many traveling teachers from different sects. He understood keenly how important spiritual relationships were for his followers. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling among the Sakyans, where there was a town in the Sakyans named Nagagika. Then the venerable Ananda approached the Blessed One, paying homage to him, sat down to one side and said,
Venerable Sir, this is half of the spiritual life. This is good friendship, good companionship, good comrade. I cannot say.
comradeship.
Thank you.
No worries.
Not so, Ananda. Not so, Ananda. This is entire spiritual life, Ananda. This is good friendship, good companionship, good comradeship. When a monk has a good friend, a good companion, a good comrade, it is to be expected that he will develop and cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path. On another occasion, he repeated this theme, speaking to a young man named Sigalaka and saying, "Young man, there are these four kinds of kind-hearted friends. The friend who is helpful, the friend who shares one's happiness and suffering, the friend who points out what is good, and the friend who is sympathetic." From In the Buddha's Words by Bhikkhu Bodhi.
The entire Buddhist history is filled with spiritual friendships in which disciples, monks, lay people, and even children challenge, instruct, question, and enlighten each other. Eventually, the Buddha established the Vinaya, the rules of the monastic order, so that there would be harmony among his disciples. The Vinaya was a kind of framework for relationships. There are so many of Buddha's teachings that focus on relationships. The precepts are teachings on how our relationships can be wholesome and ethical by refraining from harming, stealing, lying, misusing intoxicants, or sexuality, for example. The Paramitas teach how to cultivate qualities that are deeply valued in relationships and in society: generosity, ethical conduct, patience, vigor, concentration, and wisdom. These teachings on wholesome relationships and social harmony complemented the Buddha's instructions for individual meditation and encompassed whole societies. The Buddha's teachings were not an outline for a self-improvement project. They were not limited to meditation instruction. They were a blueprint for the transformation of a civilization from warring kingdom states to prosperous, peaceful, wise societies. We are still trying to learn this lesson.
There's something here. Yeah.
The Zazen is not learning meditation. It is simply the Dharma gate of repose and bliss. Eke Dogen in Jokoan.
The evolution of Chan. In China, the teachings of Buddhism first took hold through the texts transmitted from India and Tibet. Huge translation projects from the Sanskrit and Tibetan made the Dharma available for study and devotion, fashionable among the elite classes. In the middle of the 5th century, however, there was a revolutionary change. A mysterious figure arrived in China from the West, probably India, Bodhidharma. He was said to be rough and fierce and red-bearded, blue-eyed barbarian. Traveling throughout China, he was introduced to Emperor Wu before his court. It was a legendary encounter.
Emperor Wu challenged this rough figure. How much merit had the emperor acquired in building vast numbers of temples and monasteries? No merit, Bodhidharma replied. Astonished, the emperor asked, "What is the highest meaning of the holy truths?" Bodhidharma said, "Empty. There's no holiness." The emperor said, "Who are you facing me?" Bodhidharma said, "Don't know." The emperor didn't understand, and Bodhidharma left. Book of Serenity, Thomas Cleary, translator.
Later, the emperor brought this up to Master. I don't know how to say that name. Chia?
Here,
Che?
here, yeah.
And asked him about it. Master Che asked, "Does your master know who this man is?" The emperor said, "I don't know." Master Chia said, "He is the Mahasattva of Avalokitesvara, transmitting the Buddha mind seal." The emperor felt regretful, so he wanted to send an emissary to go invite Bodhidharma to return. Master Chia told him, "Your Majesty, don't say that you will send someone to fetch him back. Even if everyone in the whole country were to go after him, he still wouldn't return." And there he is, watching over us.
Bodhidharma subsequently crossed the Yangtze River, came to Shaolin and
Shaolin.
faced a wall. I'm sorry?
Shaolin.
Shaolin. Okay. To Shaolin and faced a wall for 9 years in silent meditation. Many years later, Emperor Wu mourned Bodhidharma's death and personally wrote an inscription for his monument. It read, "Alas, I saw him without seeing him. I met him without meeting him. I encountered him without encountering him. Now, as before, I regret this deeply." Blue Cliff Record, Thomas Cleary translated.
So, Peg, I have a question. I've always wondered, do you take that he went and faced the wall for 9 years having anything to do with his interaction with Emperor Wu?
I don't know. It follows it, but I don't know that it is a result of it. It's hard to say. I think that's an interesting question. What would you do?
So, what would I do? I don't know. But I mean, I always assume because one thing follows the other that there's some connection. That
That's it.
there's some.
Yeah.
This was an important experience for Bodhidharma as well.
Right. It's really his lion's roar.
And I wonder if he felt that perhaps he would come upon some way of helping people to understand what he meant when he told the emperor, so that if he told it again or saw the emperor again, he would be better able to transmit the information.
I
It's
don't
kind of
think
what it feels like. I don't know.
I don't think that's what his concern was, you know.
Yeah.
He broke things open, you know, as far as the emperor is concerned. And it wasn't, I don't think there's any way he could have done that more, let's say, efficiently.
Could
Yeah.
it be that it was just a continuation of his own growth to just dedicate all those years
It's interesting
to be in silent meditation?
because Shaolin is also, you know, famously the site of the origin of the martial arts, which, you know, had their origins in Zen. So it's interesting. Yeah, 9 years until Wike came along, but that's another story. Okay. Do we want to read this quote on the far side before we continue?
Taken seriously, Hui Nang's claim that it is precisely Buddhist conduct that is the Buddha. It is precisely Buddhist conduct that is the Buddha. Makes evident the necessity of seeing the ideal Buddhist person in terms of conduct, that is, his or her lived relations with others, and not according to any set of individually possessed marks or states of consciousness. Peter Ershock, Liberating Intimacy.
Little is known about the historical figure or the biography of Bodhidharma beyond the legends. If this is all we know about him, why is he the most famous of all the millions of sages and scholars who have studied and taught the Dharma in China? By tradition and legend, Bodhidharma alone is credited with the origin of Zen in China. He set in motion the great Dharma vehicle of Chan, which would later be known as Zen in Japan and Song in Korea.
From the very beginning, then, Bodhidharma galvanized a movement based on two methods: direct, unprecedented, encounter, and silent meditation. These two elements remain the heart of Chan. down to the present day. In China, these methods made the practice of Buddhism accessible for anyone: villagers, fishermen, women, illiterate farmers, even children. Shan democratized Buddhism in China, and because it accorded so well with Chinese traditions of Taoism and Confucianism, it spread rapidly throughout the land. These traditions, in turn, influenced the development of Chan, and ultimately, because Chan was practiced so widely by ordinary people, it was not subject to the fickle whims of a regime and the trends of the elite. But Chan practitioners did not passively listen to a talk on the Dharma by their teachers. They openly challenged and questioned them in the midst of the assembly, on public roads, in the marketplace, in their private meetings.
Does anybody want to share anything they've written?
I can share. I just came up with questions and realized how little I really know, and kind of embarrassed at this point by that. But let me see if I can find it. It is interesting to me that Appamada was founded to be a new way of doing Zen. And I may get all the words wrong, so just excuse me. The Home Zanga taking into account people who were living contemporary lives, and that it was recognized as being important to find a way to include people who were or wanted to be on the path, but had to or desired to maintain their everyday lives as well. It's fascinating to me. It is not the give up everything and follow me of Jesus. It's more it's more like, although maybe far away from the Jewish traditions of bringing religion into the home while also worshiping in the temple. I would have loved to be on the road with those who were debating and talking about what Buddhism was or was becoming. It's interesting that there did not seem to be a huge uproar as Buddhism diverged into different practices. I imagine that there was some conflict. It does not seem like it was as intense as when each denomination broke off from Catholicism. Where were there those who would not accept each new sect? Did some accuse others of not being Buddhist enough, or that Buddha was never going to accept them? Did he even have that ability? I see that openness and discussion and disagreement all seem to be accepted. Were there wars fought over each type of Buddhism, of which type of Buddhism was correct?
There was disagreement. There were disparaging remarks made by teachers about other teachers or about other schools. The big divide is probably between Theravadan Buddhism and Mahayana Buddhism, of which Zen is part. And it's the difference between uh, working for your own attainment, your own enlightenment, and having a vow for the liberation of all beings. So that's a genuine divide in the among the Buddhist followers. And then Tibetan Buddhism is kind of its own thing. It's sometimes called Vajrayana, but it's really part of the Mahayana tradition also. It's just got it's like a big school of its own. So there are these schools, it's true. And I'm sure there were conflicts between different sects of Buddhism. I don't know that there were conflicts between different Zen groups or Zen schools. I think there was a lot of traveling around to learn from each other. And And that's recorded in this koan tradition and just in the general documenting of things. So I think there was less of that kind of adversarial sense in those different schools in Zen, at least. And I don't think, there are some of the Mahayana texts disparage the Theravadins, um, but there's not a sense of overt conflict, I don't think. It's just basically like, yeah, they're just basically concerned with their own self-centered improvement or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, and the Theravadins are like, you latecomers, you don't know what the true Dharma is because you're not working towards your own Buddhahood. So there's some of that, but I wouldn't say that in my experience or my understanding, it hasn't led to a lot of violence.
That makes me feel good.
Um, my sister explained to me that in Japan and in Asian cultures and generally, it's additive, not singular. So when they go into an area, there's a bunch of folk deities that are already being worshipped. They just appropriate them and, they celebrate those holidays too. And then it's just additive, So, so they would be perfectly happy to celebrate, Jewish holidays and Hindu holidays and Buddhist holidays, and there's a kind of accommodationist view of religion there, and inclusive. Except when Christianity came along, Christianity said, no, 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 no. You can't have any other belief systems but ours. And then, of course, the Asian people are like, what?
What are you talking about? Yeah.
We're just happy to
Talk
celebrate.
about disrespect.
Yeah, we're happy to celebrate Easter. It's so it's kind of interesting because there's that sense, that monolithic sense, and that's where I think the conflict comes from. It's my way or the highway, right? That's where it comes from. And the Buddhists are like, yeah, Jesus taught some wonderful things. Oh yeah, but the Christians are not tolerant in that way.
Exactly.
And I think that some of that is changing, and there are, of course, always progressive branches of Christianity that have been quite welcoming. You get people like Thomas Merton, or that genuinely appreciated the Buddhist teachings and made use of the practices. So yeah, it's interesting. History of religion is a fascinating thing to study.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hmm.
Well, should I read?
Yes, definitely.
Many memorable sections. Mostly Peg's talk to the Soto Zen people and Bodhidharma saying, I don't know, which I feel was a realization that drove him to the cave. Was it a good encounter? I think so, especially considering that Wu came around finally. And I think Bodhidharma realized he had a little more work to do. Maybe after 9 years he would still say, I don't know, but maybe he'd have a little more confidence in saying it. I'm curious how Zen became formalized as it did. What is the human propensity for rigid rules and forms? These forms are further articulated and practiced in tea ceremony and certainly give meaning to mindful, energetic care, and maybe the word efficient should be there. How does one do all of this with joy and without being obsessed? How does one stay relaxed? Bodhidharma burnt a hole in the cave wall because he sat with such concentration. Is that what the practice is about?
Oh.
I see smoke coming out as he
I think the point I'm trying to make in that chapter is that Zen is about both those things, that capacity for stillness and silence and encounter. and kind of relational encounter. That it's woven into this tradition from the beginning. Yeah, and I think don't know is like the perfect response to who are you? Well, do you think you could really define it? It's like a map that was an accurate map of the territory would be as extensive as the territory itself, right?
Right.
And we take it, I take it that Wu meant that at a completely different level, like what's your education or something like that.
Yeah, like what's your where do you what's the
What
best?
degrees do you have?
It's like so many of the koans start out with where did you come from? You know, where do you come from? I come from the South, you know. And it's such a profound question, you know, like how do you answer? I came from the library. You know, I came from a sperm and an egg coming together about, 76 years ago, or I come from a long line of, Irish people, or so I didn't really talk on that very first experience, where do you come from? There's so many different ways you would answer it depending on the situation, right?
Yeah.
I come from Texas. I come from, the United States. I come from, Austin. I come from 38th Street. Yeah, it's so great. Such a great question. Who is this? Where did you come from? Anybody else?
I wrote something.
Great. I put
Uh,
your poem right in the book, by the way.
You did. You honor me. Thank you.
It's in chapter 13, chapter 12, maybe.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was chapter 13. It seems to follow me around.
I'm working on it right now. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm pulling it up 1 second because it seems that I just lost it. Okay, here we go. Householders and Zen, rules and traditions, meditation, individualism, hand in hand creating a community. From ancient practices to modern tentative practices, sitting as a lotus, living in the present, from the past into the future in mindfulness.
Mm,
Oh,
that's lovely.
thank you.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Mm.
It's kind of, I kind of feel that it's like a summary of what we read
Oh, yeah.
because you are trying, well, not trying, you are, you have done it because you are getting, you see the tradition of Zen, but you understand that we live in a present that is very different than when that religion came up, and it needs to be adjusted and bring it into the modern times. So that's why I wrote it like that, because it is, you're not saying, oh, what came before is horrendous, we're not going to do it. No, you respect what has come before, but you're bringing it into the present, changing it and kind of learning as you go. What would be, okay, is this working? Okay, then let's keep doing that. This not working? Okay, let's not do that. So you're kind of going tentative, and but you still have the meditation, you still have, the mindfulness of being in the present, and that's why yeah.
Thank you. That's really helpful. It's helpful that you got that from this reading. Yeah.
Well, thank you for writing it.
You are a very engaging writer.
You think so?
Yeah, this is not stilted or boring or um,
Good.
any of those kind of things. You're bringing right into the situation, and the way you describe things is, I think it's very good, especially your interactions with other people. It's hard to write. You know?
I wonder, I do wonder about whether it's too academic or too esoteric for readers, if it's not, if it's accessible enough for readers and not tedious. Like,
I at least have not found it tedious, and I hate tediousness, so I would definitely tell you.
I was in the middle of writing my dissertation and I said to my dissertation advisor, I don't know, Charles, I don't, I'm not writing anything profound. He said, I just want you to remember something as you go forward. I said, what? And he said, Charles hates profound.
I do think that when we try to write something profound, okay, let me restart. I'm a writer. I'm a poet. That is what I am. And I don't know when I'm going to write something profound. The thing is that I find that out afterwards. And normally, when somebody else tells me, oh, what you wrote there, I saw this and that. And I'm like, oh, I thought I only wrote about this. Turns out a tree grew when I thought I had only written a branch.
Uh-huh.
So I don't think if you sat and kind of went, I'm going to write something profound, it's a difficult thing because you don't know where the depth is,
That's
or
right.
at least that happens with me.
Well, I don't have a choice now at my age because there's nothing left to posture about. I just have to write what's in me to write, and hopefully it serves as a purpose, so hopefully it helps people in some way. But this is something that has to be written about, I think.
Well, you're writing the history,
Yeah.
and you are telling the history of it. So, mission, you are accomplishing your mission.
Oh, good. Yeah. Mm. Well, we're at the end of our time. I want to respect our time. I don't want to keep you too long. I'm so appreciative of your willingness to read this through with me. I'm working on chapter 13 right now, and you'll be happy to know, Anne, I'm talking about sewing. About how we got led into that whole practice. That'd be interesting.
Be good. And you said we're not meeting next week, but the week after?
Next week I'll be in the intensive, but the week after, if my plane doesn't get delayed, I'll be flying back that afternoon. So I should be back, but
Okay.
if we have a big snowstorm or something like that, I'll end up camping out in O'Hare Airport, which is never very fun.
Never fun. No.
Anyway,
Yeah.
have a wonderful 2 weeks. See you later. We'll mush on with this encounter chapter. All right. Thank you so much.
Yay. Thank you.
Night.
Bye. Good night, Melinda.
Good night. Oh, Kim,
Yes.
I want to tell you thank you for sharing the info on the workshop that I did. It was really nice.
Was that a drawing workshop?
Well, a combination of writing and drawing.
Oh, good.
So it's basically what you do. You write and you draw, and your drawing brings even more meaning to your writing. So I was doing a workshop on how, even if someone doesn't know how to draw, they can learn by using basic shapes to to create more complex images. And and also I was talking about using symbolisms in order to express emotions and thoughts.
Neat.
So we did, using the basic shapes and build more and more complex drawings until then we got to the point where we brought in the motion into it, and then we did writing, and they got to illustrate what they wrote. And it was really cool. Sarah came, and also Jean came, and Janelle came.
Wow.
And yes, it was very cool. It made me feel so much better because I was so nervous. Oh my goodness.
Well,
So
that's neat.
yes, I really
Nice to see
appreciate
you
it.
again. You must be feeling better.
Yes, I have just been doing set building up that creating that class took me many weeks, but now it's done. So I can repeat it, but the creative process and having to draw and all of that is done. And it just took a lot from me. And now um, I'm going to be given I'm part of a presentation. It's the three of us on the 28th of February about how silence, shame, and stigma, how to use the expressive arts to overcome that, so people would not kill themselves just because they are too ashamed to ask for help. And the thing is that it's going to be with telehealth, and it's going to be used for continuing education. And also,
Will you send me the info on it? Is it something available to?
oh yes,
Yeah, so you'll send me, okay, and then I'll spread the
sure.
word.
Oh, thank you. I oh, thank you. I appreciate. I wasn't saying it to you so you would. I was just sharing it with you as friends. I don't want to put you. I don't want you to. Um. I
Don't worry about that.
thank
Fine,
you.
it's fine.
I really appreciate it. And now I'm creating. Finishing a book. I'm rewriting, doing the edits and formatting it. And that's why it's taking my strength now, because it's going to be a workbook for a 15 meeting class.
Wow.
It's going to
Neat.
be a Marble Me Free course, and it's going to be a support group for people who live with extreme pain, and that causes them to go through a grieving process. And sometimes they can get stuck on that. So it's in order to help them get through that.
That's
And
wonderful. I really like that idea.
thank you. We're right now, telehealth, the CEO, Ray, he really likes it, but he cannot host it because his company is not set up for that. So he's talking to other people to see if they can host it, but then Ray will market it and also give support in like using the Zoom and all those things. So I am actually the lead on this project. So I'm creating the syllabus and everything. So, and we're gonna be using the expressive arts in this, and it's following the marble block.
That's
The
great.
poem, the poem of the marble block that's where I showed how I went through that grieving process. And now hopefully that can help others. So
Wow, you're really moving.
that's the thing that Elaine, I wrote the poem for Elaine. And it just, like I said before here, you don't know when you're writing something deep until afterwards. And hopefully it will help more people. So
That's really
So,
neat.
yeah.
Look, nice to see you again.
likewise, and tell me, how is it going now that you are a teacher?
Um, I keep learning. So I will see you soon, I hope.
Yes.
Okay, bye.
Bye.